Right then. Performance is a behaviour, not an outcome. Episode 3. Live from Leeds. It's not live. We're recording. And you're not in Leeds. I'm in Leeds. Because I've been to the UK Coaching Summit and the UK Coaching Awards yesterday. I'll talk to you a bit more about that. Mark, how are you?
Good. I've got my 58th birthday coming up in 10 days or so. So I've just been doing a lean phase, as I do, just to see what I can do each birthday. So still telling myself I'm 37. So
yeah, well, still got the physique, the outlook, and the visage of a 37-year-old. I would say, Mark. If only I look as good as you at 58, I would be more than happy.
Consistency and genetics.
Well, there you go. So, yeah, but luck and work, like it. So we thought we'd do something slightly different. Well, not different, actually. I know this program we're working through various different things, but one of the things I thought we were going to do today was talk a little bit about why we're doing this. It sort of occurred to me, Mark and I had an exchange during the week via WhatsApp, as we often do when we're setting these things up and all that sort of stuff. And it kind of prompted some reflections in me that I want to talk about. But what it then also made me think about was actually we probably need to talk a little bit about the origin of this and kind of our journey, your journey with PDS, my journey our journey together along the sort of, kind of windy path, swimming in different rivers from time to time. And then sort of like join it all together so that people get a real sense of kind of what we're doing now and why we're doing it and where we're going and what I'm doing. Before I jump into all that, though, it's just a reminder to the audience that, we're doing this project. There's a few different reasons to do the project. One of the reasons is an opportunity to reconnect. My professional life has enabled this. The other reason is that, this is a collaboration and we're hoping that the collaboration will resonate with people and be valuable. And one of the things we would dearly love is for people to share it as wide as possible. Subscribing on the YouTube feed or, wherever you're receiving this, whether it's in any of the social streams that you're getting it from, and sharing it with others so that they can, if anything resonates with them or it relates to a particular challenge that they're facing or a problem that they're having, then, by all means, please pass it on your social streams. We're keen to get this message out as much as possible. And then off the back of that, if a number of people then want to find out more or work in more intensive ways than we can provide in an hour-long podcast every couple of weeks, then obviously we're happy to do so. So that's the first thing to say. So, Mark, as a starting point, I'd love you to tell the story about kind of how PDS came about even as a construct.
So it was organic. It wasn't a deliberate, let's develop this thing I can sell and earn money from. It was actually the opposite of that. So not to fill this whole podcast or conversation just with the origin story, but the key, I guess what it came from, I was brought up in a small village in Cornwall. So we had no central heating. We had the well that was the water. You cycled and ran to school every day, all weathers, hills. So that was norm for me. So I either wanted to be a commando or a vet growing up, and always loved animals. I've got rescue dogs now. I always take on the abused ones, but they give so much back in wellness and mental health. And that's probably we could do a whole different one on that as well, Stuart, on how we manage our wellness pillars. So my mother said to me, look, you need to do your homework if you want to be a vet, Mark. And I think she was very concerned because I was the why kid at school. If I didn't understand the why, I wasn't engaged. And some teachers loved that. Some teachers hated it. So when she said, well, you're going to have to do homework to be a vet, I said, I'll join the army then. So I went down the army route. My mum had to sign the papers at 16. So I couldn't go into the parachute regiment or commandos. I had to get a trade. So I joined thinking everyone would be fit and motivated, and they weren't. There was a few fit, motivated, but a lot were unfit, took shortcuts, lazy. So I became a bit disillusioned as a young lad. got into trouble as a young recruit, a young soldier. So it wasn't what I expected, and no one connected with me. So a commando then called Budgie Burgess. This might be a shout out story, and I'm sure yours will have them as well, Stuart. But he was a corporal. He came from commando forces, and I was at a normal working unit, and he saw me for me. He didn't see me as what others said to me. He saw a fit lad that had a good, smart brain that just needed a bit of responsibility. So he took me under his wing, and he started to actually connect with me. And from that, it stimulated me to go, well, I could actually go down and do the commando course. You know, I have value. So I went down, did the commando course, passed that. I think there was 90 odd on our course. 9 of us passed, January 90. I then did the physical training instructors course. And after the Gulf conflict, I came back, and then I served at a recruit training center in the early 90s as a corporal, physical training instructor, commando trained. So there's me thinking I'm the man, you know, I can train people. And we had recruit that you had platoons, and pretty much in those days you could do what you want. And at the end of 10 weeks, there was 4 or 5 different platoons. You would have competitions, log race, endurance course, etc. And it was a big thing for the platoon commanders, sergeants, corporals of that platoon to win that, because then you were the best platoon. And for the first, I'd say 18 months or so, whoever the platoon I was with won everything. And on a pass-off parade, one of the parents came up to me and said, "Oh, you're Corporal Bennett. My son doesn't stop talking about you because he's really changed your life." And it kind of hit me as a brick wall. And I thought, as opposed to see that in a positive light, I thought, hang on a minute, there's a bunch of recruits that have not passed in that have gone back to civilian life. And I thought, well, hang on, I've changed his life. Have I changed the lives of the people that haven't passed in, that I failed? So all of a sudden there was doubt and question in my head thinking, am I any good at what I did? And I started to think maybe I'm not. From going from a 10 out of 10, I went to a 3 out of 10 and think, oh, hang on a minute. Am I only good at the people that connect with me, the people that would have some mental resilience that can keep up? Yes, I'll develop them. But have I been any good at impacting the ones that didn't pass in? So I went on a journey then to see. Remember, no internet, I had no connections, I had no one that didn't know anything about this. So I went on this journey of thinking, well, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I need to either change my job or change how I did it. So I started to see, can I connect? Can I get them that aren't motivated, that give up not to stay motivated, etc., etc. And my platoon then lost a competition. So, yes, there were more passing in, but I started to lose the competitions. So the people around me then said, Mark, you're going soft, tree hugging. It was a military term for going soft, you know. And I had no one that was saying to me, even asking me the question, Mark, why? I've noticed you've changed. Why are you changing? And they didn't see it as an understanding. Look, I need to do better. I just couldn't go back. And then it took me a while, but I started to win the competitions again. But the platoons were bigger. The percentage of passing in was bigger. So I knew I was onto something. What I didn't know was how to explain it to others. Useless at that. So I couldn't share it. So I started to get success. I then transferred to the Armed Physical Training Corps. Again, that was a window where how I was being treated on the course, as on the course, I thought was horrendous. Didn't manage me, didn't develop me. So many wrong things. So I said a goal would be, once I got to a position, I would go back and run that course, be the senior instructor, which I ended up doing. But along that journey, the next light bulb came off when for years, I started to work. I think it was Saracens, Sale Sharks in Premiership Rugby, Warrington Wolves. On holidays, leave, weekends, I was training with Elite Sports in pre-seasons, building them up. And then another moment came up when a legend of a rugby player called Alfie Langer, Alan Langer, Brisbane Broncos captain, Australia League captain. He was at Warrington Wolves. And when we did the pre-season, I got all the guys connected together. You could see them really driving, communicating, empathy, understanding, real problem solving. But then he called me up a few weeks when they went back to their sport, their club at Warrington, and said, Mark, it's all gone back again. So when I went up, it made me realize, hang on a minute, this is useless if it relies on me to influence people. I need to know, how can I describe what I'm doing? How can I get coaches at any level to actually, one, understand it, then do it, integrate it in what they already do, and then embed it so that when I'm not there under pressure, they'll keep doing it. And that took another 6 years, Stuart, of me just finding to get the basics right. And this is where it developed. It was called someone, I didn't make this up. Someone said, oh, you should call what you're doing, Mark, the performance development model, because I started to share the frameworks. And I thought, oh, that's really good. Again, there was a lot of skeptics. There was a lot of, we've met a few academic psychologists. Remember one in golf that dismissed that you're trying to be a psychologist, etc. Still had the haters. And you go, no, it's not about psychology. It's about giving people tools. And so from the early 90s, it's been my passion. Every day I'm thinking, every day I'm challenging myself, every day I'm trying to find ways. And I use the word try because I'm not always successful, but I'm committed to explore it, to make it robust. How can I make it simpler? How can I find a way to explain this? How can I add layers onto it? So it's been on this journey now, I think over 30 sports, all the way from the elite of the elite, amateur and professional age groups, grassroots, but also going into governing bodies. I know we've worked with a few, Stuart, but also then into the rough neighborhoods, working in schools, to develop even primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities in UK and America, and now gone into business over the last 10 years, helping managers, performance directors, lead bosses to how can I embed change? How can I make people better decision makers when I'm not there? And if someone's not doing what I want, how can I find out the source without taking over and micromanaging? So the journey is, if someone said to me, Mark, what is it? And then what's the journey? What is it is helping people make better judgment to influence others. So unsupervised, they can be more effective. And the spectrum of how to do that. And the second element is getting people and systems structure scalable that can embed the change, as opposed to going on a training day and then forgetting it in 2 weeks, is being that firm, fair and friendly. Go, no. If we're going to say we're going to commit to this, we have to commit to what we agree. And there must be a support structure that could be 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years, to embed that into habits and culture. And I think I've become world-class at doing that, but I'm still developing it. I'm still learning. The other element, it said, Mark, if you could do it in a nutshell, I said, look, I've come across more skeptics and obstacles than I have champions. And because some people like dismissing things that they don't fully understand. Some people like saying they know it without finding out and exploring, actually, what is it? Why is it? Let me find out. Actually, I don't know if someone asked me about PDS and Mark Bennett. They prefer to be the skeptic more than actually, I don't really know, but why don't you ask him? So I'd say there's been barriers along the years, but I think I'm in a place now where I used to get a bit frustrated by them. Now it's more, I understand why you might be a skeptic, but I'm here to ask questions. I'm here for you to challenge me. I'm here now. Let me understand what you know and what you don't know about what we do. And then if we disagree, that's fine. But I know what I do works. I know it's robust. I know it has an impact on people if you commit to it. But if you don't commit to it, it's never going to work, which for me is the defining factor. When people say, I tried PDS, it didn't work. So, well, when you say you tried it, explain to me what you did. So you didn't commit to it. Well, there we go. So I'd say that's the origin story, Stuart.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of the way we connected and what happened there and some of the impact of that. But before I do that, one thing I wanted to just clarify: you talk about helping people make better judgment. I think the real true power of PDS is it's not necessarily about the coach making better judgments about whoever it is they're working with, the leader, the coach. It's about helping people in a so-called guiding, leadership role, how we want to describe that, helping the people that they work with to make commitments to change that they themselves want, and then helping to guide so it's a way of drawing out what the change genuinely is, and then helping those individuals to stay on the path. And the big thing for me, and one of the things that I was so attracted to PDS about, was the bit you talked about where you said it was no good with Warrington Wolves if when you weren't there, it didn't work. So it had to be about ownership. The group and the individuals within the group had to genuinely own the change and be responsible for themselves and each other. And so the true power of PDS is, it's not about me as coach led making judgments. It's about me and you, whoever it is I'm working with, agreeing or being clear about where we're trying to get to and how we're going to act and what we're going to do in order to get there. And then being ruthless. And this is the point, this is a phrase you use a lot, which is this idea of being relentless, I think is the phrase that you use. And the every time philosophy, stepping over the line, wherever that line is, a physical or metaphorical line. And it's every time. It's not, this day, today, yes, and tomorrow, no. We're going to make a commitment to it, and we're going to honor that commitment. And we're going to work out what happens when we don't, which is where we're coming back to. So for me, like that's the central thing. And just to resonate that, so I just mentioned at the start of this, I was at the UK Coaching Awards. And throughout the day, the summit, gathering of workforce development professionals, coach development professionals, building systems and coach education, and all those sorts of things. And I lost count of the amount of times I heard people talk about this word holistic or person-centered, athlete-centered, whatever it is. Sometimes it's coach-centered. But in the awards as well, there was an interview with Katarina Johnson-Thompson and her kind of sort of head coach, I suppose, Aston Moore, who has helped her to sort of get a silver medal in the Paris Olympics this year. And he talked about it being about person-centeredness, about understanding her and her goals and her aspirations, which she'd lost sight of. She'd fallen out of love with the sport, actually, in a run up to this. And I kept hearing this same story. And a fabulous guy who was given the Lifetime Achievement Award, a guy called John Shedden, who's an alpine ski coach, really influential on me in terms of like he shared some of his stuff around feedback has just been absolutely light bulby for me. But he said that in his interview when he was received his Lifetime Achievement Award. It's all about the people, it's person-centered, it's about them. And so that really resonates, I think, with this sort of idea that you've got around ownership and a journey of change, and we're on the road together. It's not about me directing, it's about us guiding, or me guiding and almost reciprocating and guiding each other. The athlete is developing, or employee or whoever it is that you're working with, they're almost developing me as much as I'm developing them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's an important point, because that's why I use the word need-centered, is understanding what is the need now that you may not see an outcome result right now, but you need to do this now to get the outcomes you want in 2-3 months or weeks, whatever it may be, as opposed to, let me share the solution right now and go, I'm sharing it with you now. So I think what's been really good on feedback over the years is the fact of the language I use and the principles I use at me when I'm mentoring a mentor or the boss or the head coach is the same language and principles they're sharing with their athletes, their employees, their middle management. So what we're ending up with, and that's why I use that word judgment, but it's the software in hardware, technical, tactical skill work, as a Formula One driver, as an accountant, as a basketball player, soccer makes no difference. The software is actually me as an athlete at any age. Am I engaged? Do I know how to stay engaged? What's in front of me? What options have I got? What influences have I got that's going to influence a choice based on what do I need? Okay, now I'm going to commit to that. And I'm going to commit to it 100%, not kind of. And I'm going to review the choice and the execution live. And I'm going to develop a way where I can do that at self. And if I'm working with a collective of people, that I'm going to understand their strengths and weaknesses in the moment, not on paper. And I'm going to help. That will influence the choice I make around us if it's a unit goal. And the coach understanding, that's what I want my athletes or my employees as a manager to do. How can I develop them to be effective in that, confident and competent on the good days and bad days? How do I cement the change I need in me, but also the change they need in them to actually embed it and not be, this is another idea that 3-4 weeks is another initiative. There's another initiative. And I know with your experience as working with national governing bodies, that's the big danger, right? Where we have a fashion or a fad, or I've got a new boss coming in, let's have a new initiative, as opposed to, whoa, stop. let's identify our baseline, our reality. What is our priority need aligned to where we want to go to? Okay, well, how long is that priority need going to take? How much respect do we need to give it, and support and knowledge and understanding to embed that before we move to the next stage? And that's often the missing bit with an organization, because we're living in a world where people want results now. People are looking for the magic bullet. People are looking for what's the quick fix. And there's people out there that will sell it. There's not as many people, in my experience, who go, whoa, 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 I can't give you that. And let me tell you, no one's going to give you that. What we need is 6 months to a year of committing to these fundamentals. And you're not going to get a quick outcome. If you do, it's a bonus. But this is what you need if you're saying this is where you want to get to. Whether that's an individual, a big organization as a pro athlete team, or a community sport that is losing retention of young kids. And they haven't changed, and the world has changed. What do we need to do? It's not quick, fast initiatives. It's embedding actually what do we need to be? What do we need to focus on now? How long do we need to focus on this without changing it? And I think that's the big thing a lot of organizations trip up. And I'm sure, Stuart, you've experienced that within your previous jobs massively.
Oh, 100%. And I was going to just mention that one of the things that I hear a lot as well, and again, this is a conversation that emerged yesterday, is generally speaking, if there is poor performance in a sport, work, life capacity, the answer people look for is a technical one. So it's more training in the technical stuff, will make me better. So two things: the training modality has a tendency to be ineffective because it's snapshotish. A lot of it is often lost quite quickly. I distinctly remember being at an all-colleague training day. It wasn't even a training day; it was just a gathering. But we did some kind of training stuff, and we used a technique. I don't know if you've come across it. It's the different coloured hats. I forget exactly who. See, there you go. I've forgotten who actually created it. But you have different hats according to different ways of thinking, and it's a way of ideating because you're bringing in people's different perspectives, and each hat has a different way of thinking. One is a questioner, one is a more directioner, those sorts of things. We did that. Might have used it in one meeting subsequent to that, never saw it again. So another example of how training sometimes really doesn't translate into kind of real world practice, despite everybody on the day saying how valuable it was and how useful it was and how it brought more people in and it was more inclusive. Everybody goes back to old habits. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the problem a lot of people have is when it comes to sort of learning and development, training or whatever it is you're doing, you're developing somebody. Very often there is there's no clarity in terms of the intended impact. So we go on this journey and we'll do some stuff, but we're not really making it clear where we intend to get to and what things we intend to see happening behaviorally, hopefully, which then leads to outcomes. But what we're doing is we're focusing on what are the things that we're going to do that are within our control in order to give us the best chance of achieving an outcome. And often people are looking, they're not clear in what's going to help them bring about the outcome. And so often, and you've used this phrase, you've come into conflict with certain members of in the sports industry when it comes to some stuff like coach development or mentoring, because it lacks any kind of outcome. It lacks clarity. It's a conversation between two people, which may feel great and may be beneficial, and the person might come away and they actually have, from a well-being perspective, they feel listened to and heard, and they've had a chance to offload or whatever it is, or deal with challenges or do some problem solving or whatever it is. Great. But it's not like directed towards a particular action, and there's no necessarily clarity of action coming out of it. And so it's sort of meandering, and it lacks focus and purpose. And as a result, sometimes the coach development industry struggles to show its impact. So when people are saying, well, we're going to direct resources to coach development, and people say, well, here's a load of cash or resource and people, what outcome did we achieve? And the answer is often, we had some nice conversations. And I think, actually, if you've got a framework like PDS that you can use to guide the journey, you can be really quite clear about outcome. And, if it comes down to we've got finite resources and you have to allocate resources to a particular intervention to help people on a journey of change and development, I think it's incumbent on the practitioner to be able to be clear about what the impact was, where we started, where we're trying to aim towards, and how close to that did we get, and can we see demonstrable changes of behaviour. So I think that's why I was so attracted to PDS initially when we first started talking about the idea when I was working in the golf industry, because what I saw was two things: coaches who were very technically minded defaulting to technical solutions as the means by which to improve somebody's performance, when in actual fact their performance was often dictated by a range of other factors other than their technical capability. And then the second bit was there was no clarity in the coach development offerings that were out there around the impact that it might have. And so I guess that's one of the reasons that, we forged the relationship that we did and have been on the journey ever since.
Yeah, and we could break that down so much, but there's some standouts in there. Is organizations, whether it's business or sport, they're so focused on performance outcomes. Where they struggle, which is what you were saying here, Stuart, is the enabling outcomes. Now, the enabling outcomes may not be a performance outcome measuring result, but enabling can be measured. And often the enabling are behavioral enablings in the behaviors certain individuals or teams or departments start to change and make. Now, so long as those behaviors are aligned to achieving the outcomes that you're looking for, the performance outcomes, then great. But this is where the investment needs to be. These are the facilitators of change. And this is where people struggle a little bit. And I think also we've got to a place now where people will sell, like your Hats days, an experience, and they'll get phenomenal feedback. And so everyone will go, oh, great, that was well worth the £10,000 they paid for the consultant, whatever came in for the day. For me, I'm kind of the opposite. And this may not be helpful in my sales to people that haven't experienced my stuff. But I always say, look, if there's two extremes here, if I run a day and at the end of that day, everyone writes down, that was the best day in my life. It was phenomenal, life-changing. But within a week, they have shifted zero. Compare that to at the end of the day, when you share reflections, people will say, I hated it. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't like what he was saying. But 2 weeks after that day, there's been a positive shift in people's behaviors. I'll take the second one every single day of the week, because the difference between, I think that's where the difference between inval and exval, internal validation of that. How was the day? And unfortunately, people are too much focused on that, as opposed to, well, hang on a minute. If we're driving change, often that's going to be uncomfortable. Often we're going to ask questions of people or to ask of themselves that they may not want to and be comfortable with, because it's never been. They've been able to cruise along. But the exval is, okay, so what's happened now? Fit for purpose for your role and goal. What's happened now? There's been a positive shift. Right, well, that's important to me right there. But for a positive shift, you need a support structure. You need the more investment in the change than the intervention day or weeks, whatever. It's actually, how are we going to integrate this, which is what you're saying there, Stu. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. I think, again, when you with an organization where you're giving funding to sports, and often they'll write their own impact statement. So you'll rarely get them going, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, we wasted all your money. They'll be looking at, well, here's feedback from this. We did this. And you're going, well, hang on a minute. And I'm not saying this would ever happen, Stuart, but if I was the one giving money, I'd be going, well, what are your enabling injectors? Right, let's agree that every 3 months or 8 weeks, you're sharing, once you share with me what the enabling injectors are, how are we going to measure them? Right, let's give us updates. So instead of the year going past and you write your performance, say, I'm getting some enabling injectors here. And if you cannot tell me what they are, you can't have the money, because I want you to go back and have a think about, what is it you're going to do with what I give you? Will it be enabling you for the change that you need? And put support in to help organizations do that. And that's what I do now, is sometimes I start asking questions when I start speaking to the bosses and they don't know the answers, which is fine. But let's explore the answers. So it may be I'm not the right person for you because you want someone to come in and do a motivational chat or a great day. That's not what I do. But if you identify now the need and you want support in that need, because now you recognize what it is, yes, I'm your man there. I can help you with that. And some is a bit scary, right, Stuart? That actually element to go, well, hang on a minute, that means I need to change. That means actually we're going to be held accountable for this investment over months and months. Oof, there's some work there. What if it doesn't work? A day where my bosses are going, well, this is a brilliant day, thanks very much. Is it easier to measure, easier to invest in? It's done. Okay, but where's the ripple? And it's the ripple that we need, not a pebble in and it goes flat. Actually, no, there's been change. We've rubbed the rock so much that the rock has now changed shape. That's the change we need.
I've had teams that I've managed over the years. You've worked with them, who still use the language of PDS to this day when I communicate with them. They become mantras. But what I like about those mantras is they're a shorthand way of articulating a kind of a behavioral framework and a way of thinking about what it is we're trying to achieve. One of the mantras I remember distinctly that my team at the RFU used to play back to me all the time is, we're ready when we're ready. And that was based on one of your ideas, which is we don't just deliver a session and move on because we've delivered the session. We want to see if we've seen the embedded learnings and those behavioral enablings, as you described them. We want to see whether they're actually manifesting. We might even want to test that using, and this is something we'll talk about another time, a covert test. We might actually put that in place to see and test whether we're seeing the behavioral shift that we believe and we have collectively agreed is going to be one of the things that enables performance to take place in a cohesive way. And sometimes we want to see that. So the idea of moving on just because, I've done that training, I've ticked that box, right? They've had the training. My assumption is going to be that's gone into the brain, is now manifesting behavior, and we'll see that forevermore. And then we forget about it and move on to the next thing because we've got lots of things to cover. Your approach is manifestly different, or your philosophy and idea is one that I have subsequently kind of embedded into my thinking, which is, no, we're going to stay with something until we've kind of earned the right to move to something else.
And there's a few elements in that I think some people do not connect with. Many do once you start the journey, but initially it's something I haven't thought of. That is, sometimes they'll believe 100% this is the route to take. But until you commit to that route, you might get to a point to go, actually, now that's exposed the real source of where we need to put in the time. So, okay, so do we need to adjust now, or do we still need to embed this because this is exposing something else, but we still need this first? And it's that level of tangible evaluation, which is giving you real data, whether that's software or hardware data, to say, actually, I thought this, now we committed to it, it's highlighting this. I guess an easy example with that in hardware would be a Formula One car, where someone would think, right, we need more downforce, so let's invest in this downforce. Have we got more downforce? Absolutely. The driver then takes on a track that's slightly different and go, oh, the rear end's too slippery now. I can't have traction at the rear end. Says, oh, well, what we thought now is there's a byproduct now. Okay, so do we keep going with that downforce? Now do we focus here? Or actually is there something we need to adjust here? Now that's easy in hardware because you've got data. Well, easy. I'm not saying it's easy for the solution. It's easy to identify the problem. Sometimes the implementation of solution is difficult. But in software, unless we start identifying what are the behaviors that we need and how we're measuring them, that's often where the missing link can be. It's not a hardware issue, it's a software issue. But have we trained our coaches, our managers, our leaders, our athletes to understand, can I self-reflect effectively? Okay, well, where is the source now? Where's my investment need to be here? And we're going for that journey a little bit, you and I, Stuart, aren't we? Because this is the first time for quite a while where you've had me really mentoring you at a level of regularity. And there will be uncomfortable little hits along the way because you're a human being that's got a crazy life. But my job is to just be cool in having those conversations and being relentless and patient. But for PDS to be effective, I need to upskill people in organizations to do what I do. People can't rely on me to do it. And that's, again, identifying the influencers and upskilling the influence. Go, right, now you don't need me, because actually you have an in-house robust organization that can continue the commitment to the change you need, but know how to evaluate it. Go, okay, are we ready? Okay, what's next? Okay, let's agree what that looks like. How much time do we need to commit to that? And I think that's so important, as well, is that not relying on me, but actually, can we upskill people to know how to have those conversations in an effective way to help still sail the ship? So when the wind changes, we're still heading for that lighthouse, but we know how to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, so we teased this at the start, so it's probably worth going into this now. So just as an explainer a little bit. So this notion of kind of like mentoring, this project and this collaboration, and it is, it's going in some different directions, and it's kind of interesting to see where it does go. But one of the things that's about it is sort of me re-engaging with PDS, having sort of, kind of followed a different journey, but not just re-engaging. It's also, I've been on my own learning journey with a range of different, you are one of the gateways into, kind of holistic and person-centered, need-centered, athlete-centered approaches, which then took me on a whole range of different journeys, looking at different methods. And so blending those together and making those connections and bringing our respective, kind of knowledge and skill sets together to sort of create almost like a sort of a new perception around the way humans can improve, advance, develop skill, etc., combining the two. And in so doing, one of the things that we're doing is I'm, if you like, kind of going through my kind of having done my apprenticeship, so to speak, and to use the Star Wars analogy, having been a Padawan learner, to sort of make my graduation into being fully fledged Jedi, obviously you being like a Jedi master, it's really about like recircling. So, I believe firmly that learning is not a linear thing. It's not something that, I get some knowledge and and then all of a sudden I become a skillful practitioner. It's a circular thing, and so you're continuously relearning things that you learn in order to embed it in your craft. So PDS is so deep and so rich. Like, even if you were to just do something, kind of entry point surface level, like I do, we did a 3-day, 4-day kind of really immersive thing, that hugely powerful, transformative in all aspects of my life. But it's still only scratching the surface. It's so deep, and you need to immerse yourself. You need to come back and circle back and reconnect with it in order. And there are new epiphanies each time. Every conversation we have, there's a new epiphany. This one was a bit really interesting, was you kind of nudging firmly, friendly, around honoring my commitment, which is a commitment to re-engaging with the learning content in your online space, which, by the way, anybody who wants to actually start their journey within PDS, there is an online learning space, and there is a specific code which we will send out when we put this out on social so people can access. PBNO, I think, is the code 25, so you get a discount on that. So that's probably worth doing. But as I go through that journey myself, and I'm getting new moments of clarity, and you're pushing me to do that, and I'm not always doing it because I'm not allocating a time. And you're saying to me, have you got a time in your diary? No. And I'm pushing back, and I'm saying, yeah, but my life sort of is a bit more chaotic and this, that, and the other. And then I've had a moment of gone, no. That's just me making excuses for not honoring the commitment that I've made. I made a commitment, and you're reminding me very subtly, kind of very softly, but also, and I realized, and we've had an exchange on WhatsApp, I've realized that basically what I'm doing, pushing back, is I'm actually doing what I would see somebody else do to me, and then I would actually challenge, well, what are we trying to achieve? So I've then had that sort of clarity of moment of actually, I now need to sort of make that commitment. So now I've diarized this, and actually that is something that I need to do more of anyway in other aspects of my life, because I've allowed my work life to become too buffeted by the winds of change. I'm responding to requests all the time because I'm obviously operating in a new world with a different kind of freelancing mindset, and I'm wanting to explore every opportunity. But the problem I'm then having is that creates just absolute chaos in my home life, my personal life, and in also my professional life. So I actually need some of that structure. So that small epiphany around you nudging me on, are you honoring your commitments, and can we find a solution to help you, an option to help you with honoring the commitments, has been powerful, not just in this world and our interactions, but having then that recognition that I have to be much more create more structure in my life in order to enable me to enjoy the spontaneity of moments of, when I can follow a path or a connection or whatever it might be. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that kind of little bit of a reflection I've had over the last week or so.
The key point you've made there, Stuart, is BDS isn't about switching on and off to it. It's not about turning into a robot or a Mark Bennett. It's about maintaining your authenticity, but actually seeing it as a life skill, seeing it. And I think that's where your epiphany was in your cold reflection, where we had an interaction. And I think the next day you could see you reflecting, you sent a voice note and you were connecting with, I do this in life. And that's the important part. It's not about a coach or an athlete saying, oh, this is how I do this on a court. This is how I manage my training. Because if you're thinking like that, you're not thinking about the human being. The whole point of this is actually to enhance what you already do. And what you said there in your voice message was about, this is a problem I have in many aspects of my life that you've had a lot of conversations about, but you haven't committed. And what was interesting was, even on that voice, I'm sure you don't mind me saying, because you shared it here, at the end of the voice, in the last 3 words, you used a but of the voice message. So I'm going, yes, this is really good, Stuart. Yeah, love that you're recognizing that, but I heard a but. So what you haven't shared with, what's your strategy? What are you actually going to commit to? Because there's been a recognition, but what's the plan? And we're getting to that again, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so again, this is living the journey. And again, it comes back to this point of, like you say, this isn't a concept. It's a way of being. It's a way of seeing kind of how you operate in the world. Now, you've probably come up against this. Some people find this too rigorous, too structured. They don't like the fact that it's got, and that's fine. Horses for courses. But again, everyone assumes that it's really structured. It isn't. It's about designing for you, whatever your goals are. And if one of your goals is to have a lovely kind of spontaneous, kind of go with the flow, laissez-faire lifestyle, that's absolutely 100% within the framework. And we can still work out ways to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve and be realistic about what those things are. I think this is why need-centered is such an important point, because people are often saying, I want this. I want to lose a load of weight. I want to put on X amount of muscle. I want to improve my nutrition. I want to be a better leader. I want to get better performances for my business. I want to win more games as a coach. But don't necessarily recognize the change they need to make in their daily habits in order to bring that around. And if someone says, I don't want to change my daily habits, I don't want to change my lifestyle, you say, okay, that's fine. But we're going to have to think about where you're trying to get to with these other goals, because without any willingness to change in any way, you're unlikely to achieve better outcomes. And so, that's kind of one of the interesting reflections I've had, because I was thinking, there's things I really value about the fact that I have this sort of freedom to kind of do what I want to do. And I don't necessarily want to be boxed into absolutely formulaically determining that this is what I'm going to do at this time every week. And then I went, but I'm not going to, if I don't change something, it's going to continue the way it is. So I have made a commitment. It is in the diary. I sent you the message, sent you the screenshot, didn't I? Saying, there it is. It's in the diary. That's when I'm going to be doing my learning. And now I have to honor that. And if I don't, then I'm going to have to make a recommitment. And we communicate that as we go.
It's interesting you say where a lot of people push back. It's generally when you don't fully understand it yet, when you're on that early part of the journey. where you're going, wow, there's a lot here, Mark. You know, even in the basic fundamental stuff, obviously the members area is about 170 hours now of really, here's the basics, but hey, here's the depth, here's a deeper dive. So early on, it's like, well, no, this is too structured, Mark. I'm having to change a lot now. I'm having to overthink. My brain is exhausted now. And I think it would be worth getting Alan Keane on, for example, Dean from Evo, that we no doubt will have on guests in the next few months, where they can really share. My brains were blown out even on a coaching session, because now I'm scanning for so much. Now I'm thinking, well, it's not allowing me to be me. But it's a bit like if you've never picked up a basketball or a golf club, the first time you start swinging that club, it's like, wow, this is a nightmare. And even if someone gives you a little tip, you know, one tip as opposed to overload you, it's like, oh, I'm overthinking. But once you get through that, you go, oh, no, it's not giving me, and it's not fixed. Actually, there's more flow in this than I've ever had in my life, but it's allowing me in the moment to connect with where I need to get to and what I need to do in the moment now, with clarity, with purpose. And I think that's where it's the transition bit of, oh my God, you know, if you join the members there and you look at it and you didn't go through the process, you just went, I'm just going to go a road play. You should be going, oh my God, this is too much. But if you just watch the first bit, it's kind of, oh, this starts to make sense now. And then you add a bit. But to think it will never be difficult, to think it will never be uncomfortable, you're setting up some pie in the sky nonsense. This and many other ways. I mean, if Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning as a book is a great example of life-changing perception of paradigm shifts of how some people may see things. Will that change what you do in your life? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're recognizing where you are now isn't what you need to be, then you're going to need a change. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that change is easy. Oh my God, why didn't I do this before? This is making it so much easier. And I've had some of those in the player first, player last as a tool, the rule of three as a tool. Oh my, this is so much easier, Mark. But there's so much more where you're going, whoa, I'm having a change now. I don't like change. I haven't changed for years. I'm getting some success. Not sure. You need to get past the not sure, because if you're not going to commit it to, I'm sure and I'm okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm okay. I might be more robotic initially, but for me to get where I need to be, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to walk through the mud. That's where your success comes from. And I don't know any successful person on this planet that hasn't embraced change and continues to embrace change and knows there may be a discomfort in the neural pathways or the movement or the thinking may be a bit blocky, but what they are not uncomfortable in going through that now. They embrace that discomfort because they go, this is taking me somewhere. What PDS is giving you, and again, when we're working with organizations, what we can give organizations we can fast track you there. We can give you tools that are going to help you think better. We're going to share obstacles that you can face and strategies to prevent some of them, but also know how to manage them when you get them, because we're dealing with human beings. But we'll know where you need to start. We know what the next step is, and we'll hold you back if you want to go too quick. We're not ready yet. How are we going to measure this? And I think that's a framework where it's priceless, where there's an unknown, although it's going to be discomfort, there is a direction to go, so we can take you down a route that is non-linear, but it's an effective route.
Yeah. And actually, that you've reminded me by mentioning Alan Keane earlier on. So Alan Keane is obviously someone we've both worked with and has been on my podcast in the past. And I can link to the conversations that we've had with Alan in the past. But one of the things that Alan did ask, actually, that he's quite curious about, was we did tease in the previous episode that we were going to explore some areas around ecological dynamics, which you refer to, and ecological psychology, which you refer to in the course. And it's an area where I've got some questions and want to sort of unravel those. So one thing to say to Alan, who's going to be listening into this and disappointed that we didn't cover the ecological space. We will get to it, Alan, we promise. And you know, it'll be probably the next episode where we do, because I've got to a point where I've got questions and I can't move beyond them until I've got some of those questions answered. So that's going to be the next episode. But what we felt we needed to do was circle back to, where has this come from? What is this project about? What's the journey that we're going on together? Share a little bit of some of the reflections as we unravel this live in the moment, walking through the mud together. And then and then we can move forward. So next week we'll get back on track and back moving through the learning journey.
I guess that's back to, again, looking at the big picture of where we're going. Is this like and share for these crazy algorithms that we know nothing about? But if this content, we'll make this content as useful as we can. We don't want this content just to be interesting. We want it to go, well, that's something I'm going to explore. That's something I'm going to do. Or that's something I can take with. And the feedback we get is going to help direct that. Alan got in touch with you as an example. But the other element is there's going to be a ton of people out there that will never see this and listen to this unless those algorithm things with the like and shares help share it. So we're going to keep doing this. But the more you guys that are listening can help bring this alive, help get it on the doorstep or the eyesight of someone that may not have, that's where we need your support, and that's what we really appreciate. The more it can grow, the more things we can do. Just moving forward as well, what we definitely will be doing is we will be going live to organizations that are using these principles, embedding them, and you will see it live. You will see it at different age groups, different levels of performance, and we'll run it. We'll speak to the coaches. We'll focus on an element, and you will see it live. So it won't just be these conversations, but again, your support in sharing and exposing this is going to help us do more things. So looking forward, we're definitely going to have guests on, and we're not going to stay in our echo chambers. I'd really like to get guests on. I'm going to give Dave Collins a shout out as somebody that would be a great guest on here in the future, and people like that, because what we don't want to have is we just have people that have been on the journey or agree in the language we're using. What we need people to be is that they have a conversation and go, well, actually, on social media, we may have disagreed, but actually let's have a conversation to understand and unpick. So actually we can align and agree, not picking Dave Collins out for one, but there are many people out there that just stick with their little allies. And what we need to be going, well, we're all allies in some way because we all want the same thing. But sometimes conversations on social media aren't enriched as human beings can listen and understand. They're a bit restrictive, as we've seen across the world with stars and everybody else. So live guests, but also if you have questions, put them in, and that will start to form some of the conversations. But obviously we will still be picking stuff up from that members area as well, because that's a great resource that can fast track this journey.
As always, Mark, fascinating conversation, lots for me to reflect on as I drive down the road to pick up my son from his sports science college course and take him home. But really enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to the next one, which will be just before Christmas, the Christmas episode, Christmas special, shall we say. And then I'll look forward to continuing the conversation in the new year.
Thanks, Stuart, and thanks for listening. And please whack that like and share, whatever those technical things are people have to do to get it out there. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks.